When I think back to some of my earliest memories exploring the world of Azeroth, I often find myself thinking about the curiosity and mystery that encompassed so many facets of the game. In 2004, Vanilla WoW was the most ambitious, expansive version of Azeroth ever constructed in a virtual space, pulling together nearly every region from the Warcraft RTS trilogy and adding in plenty of new and unexplored locations. But despite this grand scale, the original world is limited in time and space, and there are countless details, unknowns, that slip through the margins of this universe, and I think that's part of what makes the vanilla experience so immersive and so engaging. Characters who we never meet directly, one-off quotes that hint at lore we're unaware of, and even entire realities and planes of existence that are sealed off from our mortal senses. Our experience, especially during the vanilla time period, is constrained to just one world, and today, I want to explore our narrow view and the unique perspective it gives us as adventurers. It's also my pleasure to be featuring my fellow WoW content creator Nixxiom, who's here to provide his insights on this topic. As always, thank you for the fun comments and support, and with all that being said, let's get right into it. Classic WoW occupies a fascinating spot in the Warcraft timeline. It serves as the follow-up to the ambitious Warcraft 3, in which the Alliance and Horde join forces to battle the demonic Burning Legion, along with numerous other subplots, conflicts, and adventures. Kingdoms burn, demon fire scorches vast areas of forest, strongholds are built up and then razed, and the world tree Nordrassil is heavily damaged in the climactic finale of the war. Looking ahead to the future, the Burning Crusade expansion saw the opening of the ominous dark portal to Outland, another world struggling against the Burning Legion, and plenty of other factions vying for power over a dying realm. It's space fantasy, guiding the story of WoW back into a more cosmic direction not seen since Warcraft 2 and 3. I wanted to emphasize these details because, sandwiched right between these two is Vanilla WoW, which has neither the dynamic battles of its predecessor, nor the sci-fi adjacent journey to another world like its successor. Let's start with the former. Instead of designing an RTS game with multiple levels on multiple maps and battle mechanics that could reshape landscapes and buildings mid-game, Blizzard had to adjust their plans for story and sequencing to accommodate the MMORPG format. All players, at least during Vanilla WoW, were basically experiencing the same game world, no matter how far along in the story they had reached. Northwatch Hold in the Barrens looks the same if you're a level 20 Horde player, or a level 60 who's already pillaged it. That guy you escorted up the road a while back will eventually respawn back at the starting point. Later on, in late TBC and more substantially in Wrath of the Lich King, phasing technology was introduced that allowed players at different stages of a story to experience different states of the world. But Vanilla didn't have that. The team had to make do with the systems they did have. Small scripted events and animations mimic real progress being made in one way or another, burning down a catapult and making it disappear temporarily, for example, but it doesn't have the same effect when thousands of other players have to see the world in its original state. These small workarounds, along with quest completion and the context we get from traveling through the game, are some of the only indicators of time passing in this world, things happening. And I think this approach to storytelling and its limitations actually works for the themes of Vanilla WoW. You're not commanding an army that's breaking down castle walls and witnessing a cataclysmic invasion of the world. You're a single adventurer exploring the remnants of all this action that's now passing into history. It's slow and steady, a transient journey that sees you traveling from one zone to the next without the need to stop and explore what happens to the world. It's just there to experience, and leaves the interpretation of the future up to you.
And yet, curiously, I would add to Jediwarlock's thoughts that Classic WoW, despite its limited capability to show a changing and evolving world, had a seemingly changing and evolving story that the player took part in. Although mostly limited to quest text and NPC dialogues, despite Classic WoW having a stagnant world, its story was always ever growing in its scale. So in previous videos right here on this channel, it has been discussed how when you begin your adventure as a human, and this is just one example, you are introduced to a corrupt kingdom, threatened on all sides by enemies both known and unknown. Defious, they prey on travelers on the road. Creatures of nightmare haunt the forests of Duskwood. Orcs threaten the peace of the Red Ridge Mountains. Even Stormwind is a den of corrupt nobles and petty politics. And as your adventure continues, clad in your optimism to restore the glory and good of your people's kingdom, you're introduced to a far greater tale that unfolds through incredible quest lines like the Missing Diplomat. The Black Dragon Nixxiom pulls strings within Stormwind's keep as Lady Prestor. Duskwood is cursed by creatures summoned by the mysterious Scythe of Elwynn. The orcs that encroach upon Redridge, they are led by a savage warlord who claims to be the true heir to the title of War Chief of the Horde, and so forth. The beauty of classic WoW is that although the world itself lies seemingly still in its shape, form, and appearance, the story consisting of commoners, heroes, and villains, it all appears to be breathing, having been given life by Blizzard's masterful writing. And the constantly rising scale of classic WoW's adventure, from fighting cutthroats in Elwynn to facing down a dragon hidden within the murk of Duskwallow Marsh, is one reason why this world feels so alive, even without phasing technology.
Let's return to what I was saying about the Burning Crusade earlier. TBC brought with it portals, extraterrestrial factions, demonic technology unlike anything we'd seen before, and an entirely new world apart from Azeroth. Outland was the first time in WoW where the curtain was pulled back, and we got to see a bit more into the cosmos than the regular old game world. I still remember looking at my Burning Crusade guidebook as a kid, long before I ever entered the Dark Portal, and just being in awe of the rocky remnants of Draenor drifting out in the void, surrounded by stars and outer space. Even crazier is how Draenor's destruction caused it to lurch into a set of fractures between the physical and magical worlds, with different elements of the twisting nether visible throughout different zones. Throughout the years, expansions have continued to add other planets and dimensions to the game, but vanilla WoW hadn't reached that territory yet. It's just 2 continents on 1 planet, even though it would be over 2 years after launch, and plenty longer for 10-year-old me until we got to experience pieces of the beyond of the Warcraft universe. There are dozens of hints and references to places beyond Azeroth, only accessible by those with the means to seize the necessary power. Warlocks are, of course, the main ones to push the boundaries of the physical plane, with nearly every summoning lesson involving you calling a particular species of demon from the twisting nether to do your bidding. The Dreadsteed questline is the culmination of these studies, resulting in the summoning of one of the infernal horses to serve as an epic mount. We get multiple mentions of these creatures hailing from the planet Zoroth, shepherded by the Dreadlord Hel-Narath, who ends up tagging along with the steed to try and teach you a lesson on thievery. Across Azeroth, demonic cultists have all types of summoning rituals set up, invoking the imagination with what could lie on the other side. I think these Stargate-esque ones in Desolace have to be my favorite, and of course we have the deactivated blue dark portal to consider as well. While not present in vanilla WoW, the Explorer Imp and Legion Portal Tuner in Classic Season of Discovery also fit this feeling of intrigue perfectly, with flavor text like "connect to a world deep in Legion space," and the whole concept of your imp digging through dimensions beyond comprehension, broadening your horizon of what actually exists in the wider world of Warcraft. I almost wish I could put a GoPro on this little guy.
Speaking only for myself, one of the things that I adore about WoW's storytelling during this time was the implications, the hints, but having few complete answers. The Legion is a vast demonic host, having consumed countless worlds beyond our own, and yet there were some who resisted. The Worgen, for example, this is something that I discussed in my Archmage Autogol video over on my channel. They were not originally written as former druids of the pack who fell to feral instinct during the War of the Satyr, forcefully bound into the dream by Malfurion and the druids. Rather, these brutal and terrible wolfmen were originally written to be some species of creature that existed far in the dark beyond, on a planet all of their own. And on this world, The Worgen were locked in a conflict with the Burning Legion, a conflict that they were winning. For the Worgen, due to their savage nature and ferocity, they were a species that were capable of resisting the Legion through just great violence alone. A violence that a rogue mage like Arugal wanted to harness to use against the Scourge and anyone else that might question his so-called genius. But I remember being younger and wondering as I went about the halls of Shadowfang Keep, pondering on the folly of Arugal, what other worlds out there still fight against the Legion today? What magics or faith or wonders have they constructed that defy the will of Sargeras Most Terrible? And one day, would we meet such beings? Or is every glittering light in the skybox of Azeroth not a star, as we might assume, but a world distant and far, burning in the Legion's fire?
Besides the cosmos, there are plenty of other dimensions to consider as well. Shamans are especially linked to the elementals of the land, and by drinking magical sapta, they can attune their sight to see partially into the elemental plane. In areas of geologic or magical unrest, elementals can sometimes fully materialize from one of the 4 elemental domains, with major examples including Thousand Needles, the Arathi Highlands, and deep within Blackrock Mountain, where the fiery molten core acts as the very precipice of the physical world before it merges with the Firelands. We often hear of druids and their mystical emerald dream, a verdant reflection of Azeroth accessible via enchanted sleep within a barrow den, though there are few who practice the ritual nowadays. Last but not least, even the dead are able to peer into other worlds, with players who are running back to resurrect at their bodies experiencing a grayscale version of the world on the very edge of Warcraft's afterlife. Plentiful lore references and clues as to what lies beyond these original zones we all know and love, but within the scope of vanilla WoW, that's all there is to experience. No matter how many dark tomes or forbidden rituals you might study, this world has margins that blind us to all else that exists in the Great Dark Beyond, and I find that to be one of the most fascinating investigations into what we do and do not get to witness as we explore the game.
Fantasy, I believe, is at its strongest when not all the answers are given. For a sense of wonder must remain in the mind of the beholder as he's told of these far-off creatures and gods and myths and heroes that dwell beyond the impassable mountains, perhaps in the literal, mental, or even spiritual sense. In classic WoW, we are told of the mysterious great dragon aspects, yet we do not know them, nor do they seek our company. For they keep to their charges given to them by the Titans, and it occupies their days. They have little time for mortals asking questions of the divine order of things. In classic WoW, there are references to strange cults that still serve and uphold the will of the Shadow Council of old. What is it that they're truly planning? Will they, and how will they, invoke a new coming of their dark masters? And what other secrets lie buried in the world, like what we found in Uldaman? Behind the great door of Tanaris, what's hidden back there? Even what schemes do the old gods weave deep within the roots of the world where they're imprisoned? The point is, we could only speculate and guess when we played classic WoW, feeling either excitement or fear. And that too made Azeroth feel real, and as I mentioned above, alive. And the stories that we knew and the questions that we asked, they enchanted us, allowing our minds to truly become immersed into this world we call Azeroth. And that is why sometimes leaving gaps in the story and questions to be asked, it only adds to the quality of the writing and the world that is trying to be created.
In the years I've spent exploring the quest lines of Azeroth and those who dwell here, mostly as a solo adventurer, there are frankly too many open-ended clues and tidbits to even narrow down. That's one of the reasons why content creators like us have the luxury of making videos to speculate or expand on some of these ideas. But for today, I'll end with two of my personal favorite details that are very random, but for some reason have stuck with me for a long time. The first is a patron of Brooke's Corner, a small, unassuming tavern in a corner of Ironforge. Here at the bar stands Tisa Martine, a human woman dressed like a warrior, with armor and sword and shield. She isn't linked to any quests and doesn't even talk with you, but something about her has always conveyed to me that she's not so different from the player, just another traveler finding a brief bit of comfort before embarking on her next journey. Across the Great Sea, the troll Yakinya is found at the Steamweedle port, enticing you with tales of ancient knowledge. He is involved in several quests, which I might make a video on someday, but the very first words he speaks to you do a perfect job of setting up the intrigue and mysticism surrounding him. "Greetings, adventurer. Though time and drink have dulled my outer senses, my inner eyes remain strong." It makes you wonder how he got here, his history, and what this unassuming troll knows about the world of spirits and magic, none of which are ever fully explained. These are just a few of the countless examples of characters you find, stories you hear about through dialogue or quest text, but never get to fully understand. And that's what makes classic WoW so special. The limits sometimes push what is possible, beyond what a full explanation could have accomplished. The game design, the map, and our interactions with characters in-game all contribute to our narrow view of the wider Warcraft universe and its events. And I think that deserves to be studied and appreciated as a unique perspective on this world we continue to explore and piece together today, 20 years and counting. Thank you all so much for watching, and I want to thank Nixxiom for joining me on today's adventure. I have a feature on his channel that's coming out very soon, and don't forget to check out his content as well if you haven't already. He's doing great work unpacking WoW history and so much more. Another special thank you to my channel members who provide bonus support for these videos, and until next time, may the Force be with you.